Mario Kart Double Dash drove onto our screens in late 2003 and ended up being the second best-selling game for the GameCube. But what cut content got left over? Hello and welcome to the Cut Content of, the show where we try to find content that you aren't able to see in some amazing games. In this episode, we're looking at the fourth game in the Mario Kart series and the stuff that didn't make it into the final version. Nintendo first showed off Double Dash in a promotional sizzle reel called the Nintendo Difference, which you may remember from our Luigi's Mansion episode. However, this game clearly wasn't as far into development, as it has a completely different name and logo, uses the models for Mario and Luigi seen in Super Smash Bros. Melee, and only has one character per kart. The game finally made another appearance 2 years later in early 2003, with some new pre-release screenshots. The earliest known version of the game has a rear-view mirror in the bottom right corner, presumably visible at all times, and likely cut due to how performance intensive that would have been. There isn't a lap counter visible on the HUD. The HUD also lacks an item box, even though Mario is holding an item. All character icons are different to those seen in the final version. Icons for other players aren't grayed out like they are in the final game. There's no line for the minimap, just floating numbers. Not even the faces of characters. The font for the player's position is much different and doesn't have a black outline like the final one, and the road doesn't have any arrows either. Slightly later on in the year, on the 23rd of April, more screenshots were revealed, and they're slightly different too. We have a better glimpse of the early character icons, which are often in the wrong places. The item roulette was positioned in the center during single-player gameplay. There's still no lap counter. The rear-view mirror was replaced with a speedometer, averaging double the speed normally seen in-game. Mario and Luigi can be seen in the crowd in Waluigi Stadium, even though they're racing. Koopa Troopa and Paratroopa can be seen twice in one screenshot, showing that you may have been able to have two players pick the same character in older versions. The minimap now has a line, but there aren't character icons yet. Peach Beach lacks its warp pipe, and the blue cargo ship and Nintendo billboard aren't visible in the final game. The game was properly shown off with a trailer and demo for the first time at E3 2003. The logo was shown, which has Double Dash written in blue instead of the silver colour of the final version. The two lines on the left are at different lengths, whereas the final have them the same. However, in the Japanese release of the game, there are 3 lines of different lengths. Double Dash is also written in a thinner font in Japan, possibly to make it easier to read for people who mainly speak Japanese. A couple of trailers were also revealed at E3, and they contain some slight differences. There's another cut design for the speedometer, which is this time shaped like a mushroom. The minimap now looks more like the final version, but when lightning is used, the faces don't shrink. Luigi Circuit uses this early logo. There's no checkered pattern in between the race intro and gameplay. In the countdown at the beginning of the race, there's no 3, 2, 1, just go, which is start in the final game. Stars fly out from behind the word go in this version, which aren't in the final game. Some more early 60 FPS gameplay was shown on a 2003 DVD from Best Buy, now with the final design for the speedometer. There's also a lap counter, and the player's position now has its black outline in some scenes of the trailer. More stars fly out from behind the word go than before, even though these were cut afterwards. The sign on DK Mountain says Donkey Cannon in the final game. We can also see that the title screen originally used the box art and has the early logo. The E3 2003 demo was quite different to the final game as well. The text at the top of the screen moves, but is static in the final version. The Grand Prix flag is behind the words instead of on the right, and the difficulty levels aren't shown as mushrooms. The carts and characters don't move and are just images. No stats are visible. OK is written in the bottom left, rather than in the top right. Yoshi and Birdo swap places with DK and Diddy Kong for the final game. Icons get brighter when selected, rather than darker in the actual game. The 3 courses available all have different logos and images. DK Mountain has a different font on the Mario Kart sign. There aren't any stars behind the word go anymore. The speedometer shows around double the speed of the final game when launched from the cannon on DK Mountain. Icons on the left don't move, but instead just switch places without a transition. The first time the game would be made playable for people at home was on the interactive multi-game demo disc version 13. This is very similar to the final game and contains a bunch of unused content in the files. The game was originally going to have a reverse cut, where you'd play these tracks but in reverse. There's a logo, text graphics, some icons, and these 3 upside down trophies. While Mario Circuit is the only playable course, there are early versions of course previews showing early designs. Most notably, a different coloured dinosaur in Dino Dino Jungle and a very different looking Koopa in the background of Baby Park. Very early icons for the characters are in the files, with some characters doing T-poses and Donkey Kong Jr. instead of Diddy Kong. There's an early font for the player's initials and some buttons saying please enter your name, time attack, best rap time, and total record. There's also text saying "Why Maze" instead of Luigi's Mansion. A whole bunch of leftover graphics from the E3 demo are in the files, including the old logo, press start button, title screen background, and the logo for Luigi Circuit. Some other early course logos are in the files too, with different colours for Sherbet Land, a more outlined cannon for DK Mountain, a darker colour for Rainbow Road, different colours on the cookie for Cookie Land, different coloured eyes for Mario in Mario's Circuit, more shading for Peach in Peach Beach, and different spacing for Nintendo GameCube. Some early cup logos are also here, with no mouth for the special cup, different positioning for the all cup tour, and a very basic mirror for the mirror mode. The file ending.arc contains a drawing of a face saying "exciting ending", a peace gesture, and a speech bubble saying "peace". Slightly after this version was released, another was given out, with even more cut content, on the European Demo Disc 10. This release contains an early version of Sherbet Land that looks a lot different and very unfinished. It hasn't got a starting line, and is using developer textures with numbers on. The skybox is much more blue than the final version, with clouds hidden in the texture files. There's also an early version of Freezy in the files, along with a sign. Some graphics for a Game Over screen are in this build, with text saying "Game Over", Mario and Luigi driving an early version of the red fire cart, a puff of smoke, and a kanji for temporary. The final game released in November of 2003, after over 2 years of development, with some unused stuff still left on the disc. A model for a hot air balloon with 2 textures was left in the files. It was originally used in the background of Dry Desert. There's an unused icon with 2 faces, which would have been used for switching the roles of the chosen characters. Other unused graphics include "Thank you" written in Japanese, even though it's in English in all versions, 3 placeholder images of trophies, a logo for Peach Beach with Peach's hair down, a texture for a cut controller for the Nintendo GameCube stage, and a mini-map for Mushroom City that just says "Pata Pata Course Map". A debug camera mode can be activated with these action replay codes, which allows the camera to fly around by using the second player controller. There's also this action replay code that will activate some debugging bars at the bottom of the screen. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, watch another and share it with someone who might like it. Luigi's Mansion has a bunch of stuff in the files that you don't normally get to see. Click here to watch our Luigi's Mansion episode, or here to check out our Mario Games playlist.